What's going on, moms and dads? Welcome to the Fade You podcast, the sports betting show for the everyday bettor. Whether you're a total degenerate or you're just looking for a little action, we'd love to welcome you into our little show here, talk a little sports, hopefully find some winners, and have a good time. My name is Matt. My co-pilot on today's show is Joe. Joe, how are you doing, Dad?
Good. I was startled by you opening the pod with the new bio.
New bio, a little bit of a reset here for the Fade You pod. We're going into the football off season, so our show looks a little different, sounds a little different, but still going to have a good time irregardless.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Excited to have these two gentlemen on the pod. I've been on theirs. You've been on theirs. It's about time they're on ours.
That's correct. And we talked about it a minute ago. So football's over. No more recap show, no more preview show. So we're kind of in our off season. We do a bunch of stuff with other sports, like to have guests on that can talk about different sports with us. Saturday mornings, live on Twitter through the Fade You channel is a great college basketball preview with Kmart, with Bucket Boy, with Chris Duke. Joey Cheese has been a great part of those. So look for those on Saturday mornings ahead of college basketball tip-offs. But in the meantime, the pod, we're going to try to have different guests on every single week, touch on a bunch of different topics, and keep bringing you guys a fun show. So if you are new listening, then welcome, and we're thrilled to have you. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at FadeUSports. Make sure you subscribe to the pod. We also have a video version of the pod on our YouTube channel, so please follow that. Subscribe to that as well. Give the video a like if you happen to stumble across this. We appreciate that very much. So first off-season show for us, we're recording here on February 23rd. The NBA All-Star break is over. I'll kind of talk about my original idea and how we thought of this show in the first place, but we want to welcome on our boy Finky, our boy Pickles, Kyle, our friends from Turtle Sports, who we've gotten to know over the past couple of years. We follow their stuff. They follow our stuff. I've been on their show. Joe has been on their show. And we really wanted to have these guys on for a nice conversation about fandom and sports in Northern California and how we all grew up picking and following certain teams and kind of what's going on now. So Finky, welcome. Pickles, welcome. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing great. And thank you guys very much for having us on. We're super excited to finally be able to do this. I know it's been a long time coming. It's been a lot. Ooh, I like that sound.
Quality.
That's part of our show too.
Well, yeah. Well, again, thank you guys very much. I know we're extremely excited, and like you said, kind of football is gone. The season's over. I mean, there's the XFL, but I'm not personally watching
USFL
in April. Yes,
I'm gonna be betting that shit.
Nice. But yeah, so thank you guys very much.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. We're glad to be here. Like you said, it's been a couple years. We finally got to meet up when we were in Vegas last, and we had a great time there. We were, obviously smashing beers from the get-go, so it's always a good time.
Absolutely. So this idea happened because we're going to talk about Northern California sports here. And when we met you guys through networking and Twitter and stuff, one of the inside jokes was that the Sacramento Kings will find a way to fuck it up. Right? Kings do Kings things has kind of been your guys' thing. I don't know how many times you talked about the Kings on WTF Was That Garbage on your own show, but they were frequently and really for the past 15 years the butt of a lot of jokes. And then a funny thing happened this season. The Kings are actually good. Like, the Kings are back. The Kings are having their best season since before we all hit puberty. And so I wanted to have these guys on to talk Kings, and then it kind of evolved. Like, let's talk about other Northern California sports.
They got a beam too.
Well, we got to talk about the beam.
Oh, the beam. Yes,
they're good, and there's a beam.
So shout out to the Kings for finally getting their shit together and figuring it out and giving us this idea. So I guess we kind of want to start with the Kings with you guys. I mean, Finky, let me start with you. When you think Sacramento Kings glory days, what is the first thing that comes to mind? whether it's a name or a memory or something.
We got robbed in more way than one. I mean, obviously there was the whole, was that a legitimate game with the ref who's been betting on games? And there's a whole Netflix thing about how he controlled the games, easily done by him and his crew. And then, of course, there's always Robert Horry. So we got robbed in more ways than one. But when it comes down to it, it really does come down to the fact that the Kings never really develop anybody. So you said when a name comes to mind, it's Vlade, it's Weber. I mean, they traded for Bibby. The only one that they actually developed out of that whole team was Peja, and I think he was probably good before he got there, since he actually played in Europe for years after they drafted him, before he even came over.
Just a lot of really good names there. I remember when I was in high school, when I was in middle school, growing up, having the Kings actually be good, be title contenders, and obviously those days are long, long gone. But some exciting things now. Pickles, how about you? Kings glory days. What comes to mind?
So here's the thing: is I moved up to Sacramento 2017, so I never really paid attention to the Kings. Never really paid attention to basketball as a whole. So it wasn't until I moved up here until I became like, okay, so who are the Kings? What are the Kings? And, I've had nothing but disappointment since 2017. So this is like, hey, this team could actually do something. So, you kind of get like let down. So since 2017, it's been, like I said, nothing but negativity. And it's kind of fun to see like a local team. I mean, the arena the center, sorry, I apologize, is only 25 minutes from where I live. So, I mean, it's still pretty close. But, I mean, it's fun to see where they're at now from where they was. So glory days, I mean, my glory days, I don't have glory days with the Kings. So especially, as a sports fan, I never really watched basketball up until, the Warriors won their first title. Then I became a bandwagon Warrior fan because, like I said, I never really watched basketball.
So I think Pickles kind of hit the nail on the head when you said, being from outside Sacramento, you never really heard of the Kings, followed the Kings, like why the Kings aren't even relevant. And I think and Finky, let me know if you agree, but that's kind of it. It's the charm of them being the only show in town, it being a small market city, that when they were good in their heyday, being from the area, having no Major League Baseball team, no NHL team, no NFL team in Sacramento. It's the one pro team they have, and it's the one pro team they will ever have. So it was a really unique thing, I guess, when they were good. I mean, do you kind of agree with that, Finky? It's like there's this little bubble within Sacramento where people follow the Kings, and everyone on the outside like doesn't give a shit about them. They're like, move them to Vegas, move them to Seattle, like do whatever you want with them. And people in Sacramento are like, wait, no, that's our team. Like, even if they suck, that's our team and they belong to us. And it's a really special thing between the team and the fans.
You nailed it. I mean, 100%. Like, you want to talk about like the nostalgia of the Sacramento Kings. I mean, we drafted guys like Olden Polynice. I mean, that guy was terrible. One of our quote unquote star players at one point was Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. I mean, that's how bad the Kings were. I remember being a kid, and Mitch Richmond will be I don't care that they didn't win a title. They didn't have a chance to win a title with them, but Mitch Richmond, in my eyes, will go down as probably the greatest Kings player ever, because they would literally pass him the ball, and the other four guys would move to the other side of the court and just let him play basketball, because he was the only one on the team who could actually do anything. He went to the Lakers for the last couple of years of his career and actually got to win a title. And I everybody was pissed because it was the Lakers, of course, but I was like, you know what, good for him. Like he deserves it. We traded him to Washington, and that's what started the catalyst for all the, other players coming in, and then drafted Jason Williams. But that's exactly what it is. Everybody thought the Kings were going to be the first professional franchise to go to Vegas, and they obviously didn't happen. There was talks about, we need to get them a new arena. And if you've ever been to Arco Arena, or the Pavilion or whatever, I don't know, Power Balance or something, I don't even remember what. They had so many different names. Sleep Train, yeah. I mean, we're named after a mattress company, and that was a butt of a joke on national TV. We're at a mattress company place. So The only good thing about it is there wasn't a bad seat. You could sit at the very top of it. You could actually see basketball. You go to the new arena and you almost fall down the stairs. It's so steep, and you just have to watch the giant video board because you're so high up now. But, as soon as they started getting good, everybody wanted to go, and you couldn't get a ticket to the game anymore. And, Laker tickets were going for thousands of dollars where they almost had to pay people to show up and sit in the lower level because nobody wanted to pay over, $40 for a ticket at the time.
And being someone from Northern California who now lives in SoCal, it's so different. Like LA fans, to me, it feels like LA fans, and some of my friends are going to get mad at me for saying this, but it's not even about the team. It's about LA and just the glitz and the glamour that comes with that. Like,
you have to saunter in at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah. And the Dodger fan, it's late to the game because of the traffic, and it's the same with the Lakers, and then the Clippers. No one gives a fuck, and it's so different than when I was growing up in school, and the way that people would talk about the Kings. It just there was so much pride that went into the Kings are from Sacramento, and there are Weber, Bibby, Peja, all the names you rattle, Bobby Jackson. It's just it's cool.
Doug Christie fighting Rick Fox in the tunnel,
and there was so much pride that went along with that. Like, our guy punched the shit out of their guy, and they're the Lakers, and fuck them, and they could never beat the Lakers, and there's just so much that went into it, and it's so cool. Any Kings fan says I lost hope a long time ago, and I checked out because it was nothing but just. They were literally the biggest joke in all of sports. And so for them to be back and good, finally, it's so well-deserved for the city and the fans. I just hope they keep it going here as we get into the second half of the season. Now, Joe, you were in Sacramento for work a couple weeks ago. Talk to me about the Beam.
Oh, the Beam. Shout out my buddy Lyman. He lives in Sacramento. He is a hardcore Kings fan. But he like every time the Kings win, he sends me like a gift regarding a beam, like a lightsaber or like one of those stupid Asian Gundam things with a big beam as its cock. It's like a hilarious gift. But yeah, the beam, dude, I landed and I was pissed because I didn't get there early enough to go to the game. I landed, and then like as soon as I'm driving to my hotel, I just see the fucking beam emanating, and I was like, wow, that is pretty fucking cool. So I think that's a great touch. But just as an outsider, one of the funniest things. So last week I watched Bar Rescue, the new season, and they did a rescue of a Sacramento bar, and it was a sports bar. And the guy was like basically saying all the same shit you guys were like, oh, Sacramento, we have such a rich sports history. All these people care about sports, and I'm a big Kings fan. And then John Taffer went in there and he said, hey, nobody gives a shit about sports in Sacramento, and turned it into a fucking ghost bar. Took all the memorabilia off the walls, everything. Turned it into a fucking ghost bar. So if that's not the like epitome of what you guys are describing, I don't know what is. From an outside perspective.
The people in the bubble just love it, and it's our thing, and it belongs to us, and everybody outside is like, they're all crazy.
Yeah, we don't give a shit what anybody says about it, especially John Taffer. I've watched that guy ruin plenty of bars before.
Well, yeah, Lyman said he went back to that bar because he used to go to that exact bar. He said that the bar sucked after. It didn't stick.
It's, and what's funny is that bar's still alive and well. It's still kicking.
Fuck that. It was hilarious. So watching that, I was like, God damn.
It tells you the status of sports in Sacramento. Don't get me wrong. I will be a Kings fan. I was a Supersonics fan growing up when I was really young until I moved to California in 1995. And my dad was a Kings fan he moved here the same year the Kings did. So that's how he got into it, which got me into it. And we have a AAA baseball team and a professional basketball team that this is like the highlights in the last 20 years. They have the longest drought in all of sports of going to the playoffs. It's just ridiculous. We're talking about a beam and how cool the beam is. That tells you how bad the Kings have been.
The beam is sick. I read a cool thing on The Athletic a while back that they actually got the idea from the Angels. So when the Angels win down here, literally right across the street from where I live,
it's not very
they light up. which is not very often, and they light up the halo. So they got this giant A, and the halo gets lit up when they win. And that's the thing. It's light that baby up, light up the halo. And then when the Sacramento Kings were doing their marketing, and somebody was like, "Oh, what if we got to do something where when we win," which again has not been very often. They're like, "Oh, what if we just shoot a giant purple ass beam into the sky and it just goes on for eternity?" And it's really cool, and it has caught on. And people outside might think it's super lame, but I don't know. I just remember
lady
getting
friend. If you've ever listened to our podcast, you know I refer to my girlfriend as lady friend. It just kind of became the thing, and she didn't like it at first, and she leaned into it when she was on the pod with me one time. She will be remiss if I did not ask, how far does the beam go? Does anybody know? Like, is that like us, and we're like literally all this alien talk, we're drawing them in by the stupid beam in Sacramento? Like, Jesus. Wouldn't that be the epitome of the Kings?
Well, the fucking what's it called in Vegas has that beam too.
The Luxor.
The Luxor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's not purple.
No,
that's how
purple.
That would be the epitome of the Kings. The Kings bring the end of civilization because of the fucking beam drew in some aliens that wanted to destroy us. That's how bad Sacramento. That's how the Kings would do king things for sure. Then.
There you go. So Joe's text to me from when he was in Sacramento at the beginning of this month. Random text comes in 7:46 p.m. Holy fuck, the beam is sick. He says, I'm in Sac right now, and there's a fucking massive purple beam. There you go.
Yeah.
So let's finish up the Kings talk with this. I have the Kings win total over 34.5, and that is going to cash probably next week because they have 32 wins.
Don't say that.
At the All-Star break. Knock on wood.
You never know.
They need 3 more wins to cash that. And then I've got Mike Brown, Coach of the Year, at 45-1. And I think I don't know what he is right now. I can't check, but he's got to be one of the probably top 3, top 5 finalists, right?
Last time I checked, he was like plus 250.
Wow.
Somebody on another pod was comparing it to Brian Daboll, where you took a team that was a joke, a dumpster fire for the last several years, and you've now made them a playoff team. If they make the playoffs, I don't know how he doesn't get it.
He has to, right? Like, ultimately. I mean, when you have the Kings that are this terrible for this long, since 2006, 2006, I think it was, when Eric Musselman left, they just literally just went to crap. I mean, they have to. Like, he has to. I'm trying to
believe they fired him. The Kings were actually winning games, and they fired Musselman.
All right, let's get off the Kings. Let's go to something else.
All right, we'll get off the Kings. But go
you
Kings.
Love basketball, Joe. You know you
light
do.
the beam. Joe loves the NBA.
I fucking hate basketball.
But I actually have Mike Brown 10-1. I took it on the 19th of January. I text Pickles and said, this has to be a thing, right? If they make the playoffs, just like he said. So I'm hoping you cash at 45-1, but I will be happy with my 10-1.
We'll throw it over to the Bay Area. So growing up in Northern California, and I guess being from Sacramento is a little different for me because of the distance, but you kind of chose when you started following football between the 49ers and the Raiders because the Raiders were still in Oakland at the time. And then in baseball, you chose between the Giants and the A's. So Joe, talk about where you grew up and how did you choose your teams, having 2 teams in the Bay Area?
So I grew up in Fremont, which is A's Raiders territory. I was only 10 minutes away from the Coliseum. And so the reason why I was a San Francisco fan was my dad was a fucking Niners fan. And because the Raiders were in, I think, LA at the time when he moved to the Bay Area. So he became a Niners fan. And then he was like, well, I'm not going to be one of those idiots that cheers for a San Francisco team and an Oakland team. So I'm cheering for both the Niners and Giants. So that's how he picked it. And then I kind of was just born into it where I really didn't have a choice of who I was rooting for. So, yeah, that's how I became both of those. I grew up 10 minutes away from the Warriors fucking Coliseum. I used to go in high school for like $5 because everything was so cheap because they sucked. And that was fun. But I just never really. I'd consider myself a fan, but like I'm not getting emotional or anything when they win or lose in the playoffs.
Something tells me you don't get emotional about any kind of sports or sports betting there, Joe.
Sometimes, maybe less lately.
Maybe Fresno State on your birthday, right?
Yeah, I was pretty stoked about that. That's probably the only. Honestly, that's probably the only one I truly care about is Fresno State, being that I am a Fresno State Bulldog. I am not a San Francisco 49er or a San Francisco Giant, but I am a Fresno State Bulldog.
Yeah, and for me, I'm not a fan of either one. I actually hate the A's. I was born in Tacoma, Washington, so I'm a Mariners fan. That's what I grew up with. Like I said about the Kings, I moved here. That's the only reason I'm a fan is because my dad was. If anybody knows me, they know I'm a Tennessee Titans fan in football, which doesn't make any sense either, of course, but that's just how it works out. So I actually hate the A's. I'm glad they're terrible. I talk shit about them all the time to all my friends that are A's fans and tell them how bad they are, and they're like, "You're a fan of the Mariners. You guys have won the most games in the history of baseball and then lost in the first round." So, I mean, Kings, Mariners, and then the Titans were terrible for a long time as well. So maybe it's me. Maybe I just need to not be a fan of them. They'll be good.
See, and I don't hate the A's. Like I grew up, I didn't really like them just because obviously the rivalry, but I never was like, fuck the A's. And especially when the A's are making the playoffs with their fucking $40 million payroll, I think that shit's badass now. So I don't have any kind of ill will towards them. They're going to be the Las Vegas A's in a year anyway. So
yes, they are. I'll be happy to go see a game when we're out there.
And also shout out to that dude that got a blowjob in the fucking during an A's game in the upper deck. You guys see that?
I did not see that one. Good for him.
It was like a big controversy there. The police were trying to figure out who he was, and he's up there getting dome in the top when they're one of like 3,000 people at the game. Absolutely hilarious.
When nobody goes to the games, there's all kinds of stuff going on up there in the upper decks.
Well, I mean, you're getting cheap beers and cheap hot dogs there, so it's a good.
I don't even know if you're getting cheap shit there. I know the tickets are cheap, but you're still getting Bay Area prices.
No, food's cheap at what is it?
Yeah,
I'm sure it's top quality as well.
The A's have had a couple of decent runs, right? Like a lot of people, if you like sports, have seen Moneyball, and people love that movie, and they love the story of the A's from the early 2000s. What was the winning streak? 20?
I think it was like 22, wasn't it?
Dude, that team was so sick. Oh,
and so there's something about, I mean, they're just like the ultimate underdog. They don't spend any money. They lose all their players. And so when they go on those runs like that, it's been kind of a cool story. And of course, now they're just dead. And then the Giants make the World Series in 2002 with one of the most unlikable, great players in probably the history of sports. And then they don't do a lot. And then all of a sudden they get white hot and just start ripping off championships 2010, 2012, 2014. So Bay Area baseball has just kind of come in these waves, I guess. And now the Giants are just, I'm not really sure what they're doing, actually.
Yeah, we don't know what they're doing. It'll be interesting.
When's the Correa press conference?
Oh.
I'm really glad that didn't work out. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get to sit back and watch, obviously, because, like I said, I'm not a fan of either one. And it's like you said, when you have a team that's the super underdog that's getting there. I mean, the Giants, the first year they won it, everyone was kind of like, oh, wait, what? They won? Oh, okay, cool, that's great. And then 2 years later, they do it again, and that was the year they swept, if I remember correct.
Yeah, against Detroit, they fucking swept them. And dude, Detroit was like minus fucking 350 to win that series.
Yeah,
like they were
thought they were
heavy
going to win that one either.
And
God,
they
can you imagine if you had taken Giants to sweep there?
Oh, dude, I was sitting in class as a I wasn't a freshman. I was in college. So what you said 20. That was 2012. So it would have been like my junior year of college. I was sitting in class. I had a 7 p.m. class, and I'm in there with the fucking game on my phone, like trying to pay attention. And there's like half the guys in there are Giants fans. Fucking Pablo hits his third homer, and everybody's like, "Oh, fucking!" all loud and shit. The teacher's like, "What's going on?" We're like, we're missing the fucking game right now. I had a class from 7 to 9:50 that night.
Oh,
gross.
That's rough.
Wow.
So I actually, you guys have both been there. It's where Kyle and I met, but at the Glass Turtle, I was bartending that night, actually, that they won. Somebody had called in sick. I was just a bouncer and like, hey, can you bartend or whatever? And here's the best thing. You want to talk about being a cow town of Sacramento is they didn't have any champagne at the time, and it was so unexpected that they won and swept that everybody was spraying Coors Light everywhere instead of champagne. It was
amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, when they
Wow.
won in 2010, I was, Matthew knows this, at the Palazzos and in Fresno and fucking sprinting up and down the hallways with beers like Giants won the World Series, because especially because in Fresno is kind of like not Northern California obviously, but the Fresno Grizzlies were their AAA affiliate, so
Yeah.
everybody in Fresno was a Giants fan for the most part, other than the few that moved up from Southern California. So that was really cool.
Those teams were just so likable because it was this really interesting mix of dudes they had developed, like Lincecum and Kane and Posey and all those guys, and then like all these vets they got off the scrap heap. Like, I mean, Joe, you could probably rattle off a few names of just
Scutero,
these dudes they signed. Scutero,
Ishikawa, Aubrey Huff, fucking
Renteria was a World Series
Edgar
MVP.
Renteria. Yeah.
So they were just, I mean, God, and Bochy was so likable, so different from down here in SoCal. Like this Dodger run has been so many guys they've brought in from the outside, right? It's just like, who's the next superstar we can bring in?
And one fake championship.
And that's all they have to show for it. So it really is an interesting contrast. It's too bad the Giants couldn't kind of keep that kind of success going. And then let's just talk about football. Like, Finky, you talked about being a random ass Tennessee Titans fan. I feel like that's more of an NFL thing where people just pick a random team. But the 49ers are really interesting because in Southern California down here, there's a ton of 49er fans because the Rams left for a while. The Raiders were here and left. And so the 49ers had all the success in the 80s and the early 90s that there's a ton of 49er fans in SoCal. So it's always struck me as odd when there's diehard 49er, and Kmart's one of them, one of the Fade You guys, diehard Niners fan, but you love the Lakers and the Dodgers as well. It always just
Those people make no sense to me.
I don't get it,
especially because like, you know, they do the beat LA chant, and I'm like, bitch, that's a fucking NorCal thing. You can't fucking say beat LA when you're a fan of the fucking Dodgers and Lakers and shit.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely, it's like saying hella. I mean, it's Northern California all the way, no matter what. Like that is not, you can't use that anywhere else. But it's almost like you said, like being like an A's fan and a Niners fan, or being a Raiders fan and a Giants fan. Like it never made any sense to anybody.
Yeah.
But I
don't think there was a lot of Raiders Giants fans. There was
there
Niners A's for sure.
Yes. Yeah, but like you said, being a Dodgers fan and a Niners fan does not make any sense whatsoever. So I think he should have to. Kmart should denounce his fandom to the Niners. He has to claim the Bengals only.
No, fuck him. He denounces the fucking Dodgers is what he does. He can keep the Niners.
But it was one of those things up here. Is like the Niners and the Giants played at the same stadium. They played at Candlestick,
right?
And so when you were a fan of one, you were a fan of the other, because you were there and you were getting the same merch at the same spot, And same thing with Oakland and the A's and the Raiders, is they played the same.
God damn it!
You kind of got that, you became one, but you became both.
I miss Candlestick Park, even though that place was a dump.
Getting out of there, man, was always sketchy. You never knew if you were going to get robbed or stabbed or.
Dude, I just would sit in the car and keep drinking, wait 2 hours, and then fucking leave when everybody else is gone.
We went tailgating there, and I had 2 barbecues stolen out of the truck. Man, it was awful.
It's kind of like when you guys were talking about Arco Arena earlier. Those old shitty arenas and stadiums had like this weird charm to them that people who are fans of those teams, like I've heard this a lot about like Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, like some of these old dumps that they're so beloved to the people who are fans of those teams. But I mean, young kids now that just go to all these state-of-the-art arenas, they just have no idea what it used to be like to go watch a game somewhere like Candlestick, Arco Arena, have to get out of those places. Absolutely brutal. God.
Yeah, even
the Coliseum in Oakland is still a dump.
Oh, dude, that place place
all-time.
is all-time bad. I would go there for the high school football shit too, even when I was younger as well. And I'm just like, what the fuck is this place? It's so bad. I went to a bunch of Raiders games when I was a kid because it was just cheap. Or me and my buddies would go for fucking basically free because the Raiders sucked. But I mean, those were good Raiders teams what was that? What was the year? It was 2000, early 2000s with Gannon and Rice and fucking Tim Brown.
Tuck rule. Tuck rule.
Yeah.
Yep,
Those teams were good. But after that, they sucked. They would just get their ass kicked every week. It
They're
was
terrible.
fun to go watch. But those Raider fans, though, holy shit, those are some passionate dickheads for sure.
That might be the one franchise in all of sports that you could move them to fucking Mars if you wanted to. And it wouldn't matter because it's Raider Nation, and I don't care if they're in LA, Oakland, Vegas, wherever. They don't even care. They'll find a way to go. They'll find a way to just keep their Raiders fandom. They're just such a unique bunch, and kind of I never rooted for the Raiders. I kind of rooted for the Niners because I had a lot of friends who did when I started liking football, and that's just kind of the way I went. But the Raider fans were always just so crazy and intense and passionate in their own weird way. That's just kind of how it was like being in the Sacramento area and having fans of both teams growing up.
Well, and the problem is that you had two different kinds of Raider fans. Like you had the people who were passionate about it, but then you had the ones who if you said anything bad about it, they literally wanted to stab you. And it wasn't because they were passionate or they were that good of a fan. It's just they had to be right and things like that. And so they got kind of a bad stigma for a while. But when I went down there one time with my dad and a bunch of people that he works with, we took a bus down so nobody had to drive. And it was great. We actually walked around and met all the guys that dress up, and like everybody talks about, oh God, you got to fear that guy. They're all doctors and lawyers. How do you think they get front row seats for decades on end at a football stadium? I mean, it didn't matter how bad a team was. Like that, those tickets are not cheap. So there's a stigma, but you're right. The passion is probably the biggest thing about them.
For sure.
Oh, dude, I was at a Raiders Jets game, and this dude was walking by wearing a Jets jersey, holding his daughter, maybe like 2 years old, wearing a Jets jersey. And this fucking Raider fan walked up and goes, "Hey, fuck the Jets," and then fucking hocked a loogie and spit it right on him. And I was like, holy shit, what a dick.
That's the most disrespectful thing you can do to somebody.
that like spit on his kid. And I was like, well, this is the Raiders 101 right here. Fuck. I'll never forget that.
Wow.
I was like 18.
Yeah, I was.
That sounds about right.
Same trip down there. I watched a guy walk down the stairs. It was actually a Titans game. My dad's like, whatever you do not cheer for the Titans. And this guy walks down the stairs. The Titans scored a touchdown, and the guy turns and punches the glass out on a fire extinguisher. Next thing you know, here come the cops, and he's getting hauled off. Raider fans, man.
They are a one of a kind, that's for sure. So let me throw this to you guys. You guys have the glass turtle. What fan base, I guess, of the teams we talked about in Northern California, who moves the needle the most, do you guys think? What's your perception of being up in the area?
It'd have to be the Giants or the Niners. When the Niners played, it was just packed everywhere. So yeah, that both those franchises. So I mean, yeah, it's easy to tell. I mean, you have both Oakland teams are leaving, and everything's thriving in San Francisco. So yeah,
the Niners would probably be the one. I mean, baseball season's so long, people aren't showing up 162 times a year to the bar to watch the game. But I mean, for 17 weeks, you can watch your team. And the thing about it is I have quite a few friends who are in the bar and restaurant industry. Couple own them, and they actually hate when the Niners get into the Super Bowl because everybody all of a sudden wants to have a Super Bowl party because their team's in it. They got to have all their friends over to watch the game. But if it's any other team, they're like, oh, let's just go to the bar then because I don't care. So that's kind of the mover for me.
I experienced that exact scenario. I went on Super Bowl Sunday. I went to fucking Champagne Brunch, got a little buzz on, went downtown Fullerton, and I'm sitting at the bar, and it's like 2 hours before game time. I'm like, where the fuck is everybody? And then the bartender's like, dude, nobody's going to come today. And I was like, no shit. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, to me, it's about going out and hanging out with people and high-fiving people you don't know and getting along. People get mad at me because I equate sports to religion because it gives people something to believe in. It gives them a common bond. something to root for, something to believe in, and you get to meet people you've never met before. And I think the Niners do that for a lot of people, because you see people who have never met each other before in a bar, high-fiving and hugging when they're winning and basically crying when they're losing. So, I mean, I wasn't out and about when the Purdy injury happened, but from what I hear, it was literally like the air went out of the room, and it was like, oh, great, here we go.
Don't tell what you just said to our buddy Chris Duke. He'll just berate you.
I was just thinking Chris will love that.
I can't wait to hear from him.
Yeah. Man, the Niners they're such a weird spot as a franchise. Like, I feel like I experienced the one Northern California team. One of the ones we didn't talk about was the Sharks, because hockey's not as popular. But for years, the Sharks would make the playoffs and then just break your heart. Just find a way to lose in the most just gut-wrenching fashion. And after a while, you just can't do it anymore as a fan when your team just consistently gets there and then falls short. And I feel like the Niners are almost sort of approaching that level where they've been so good for so long, but they're not getting over the hump. It's exhausting for them to create and invent different ways to bow out of the playoffs every year.
Yeah,
well, I'm not a huge.
I think they're so solidified that I don't think even though everything's gut wrenching, everybody's going to stick with them.
Yeah, but what would you rather have as a fan? Would you rather have a team that makes it to the playoffs that far, that just continues to get, right there, or be a Jets fan?
Be the Rams. Be the Rams.
Or
where you get there, you win it, you're never going to win it again, probably.
No, I mean, Pickles, you make a great point. It's like, would you rather do that or be a Kings fan for the last 15 years and you're never even sniffing shit? You're in the lottery every year, picking the top 5, and you still have no chance. So,
well, but I mean, like, on the thing about the Sharks, hockey is such a sport. If, like, you're either into it or you're not. Like, I'm not a huge hockey fan. I don't understand the strategy, so it's hard for me because that's what I want to understand about it. I want to understand the rules, all of that stuff. But I mean, like, Lady Friend turns into a savage beast at times when the Sharks come on, because that's like her favorite thing. So hockey fans are just a totally different type of fan all around.
I agree. And hockey fans are badass, man. If you go to San Jose,
yep,
like downtown San Jose, when the Sharks play, it fucking every bar it's on, they're doing every bar has drink specials. It's
and
fucking electric. It's electric. Yeah, and it's packed. Yeah, so I mean, I got to see a little bit of it when I was like, it's a totally different thing. But when I was in Detroit 2 weeks ago and I went to a Red Wings game, I was like, holy shit. But San Jose, I would say, is like half of what that was. But it still was really cool to see, like, because like you said, there's not a lot of shit going on in Sacramento. San Jose, while it's close to everything, if you're a fan of hockey, you got the Sharks. Nobody's rooting for the fucking Ducks or dickhead Kings down here.
Well, and I was down in LA a couple months ago, and I went to the Kings. The Sharks just happened to be in town, so we went to the Kings game. And in true LA fashion, like I said, after the first period, the whole group started. We ended up having, finding some sweet tickets, and like there was nobody in there. There was like 4 or 5 people in there, 2 Sharks fans, 2 Kings fans, and they were all super excited. And then like this 6-person group walks in, like, towards the end of the first period, like, oh yeah, we love hockey, and then they were all gone before the game was even over, and the game went to a shootout. I'm like, you don't like hockey, you just wanted to show up and say you were in the suite and take a picture so everybody knows you were there.
Yep, that's about as LA as it gets right there. So,
I'll take
guys,
my shitty Kings and stay up here.
Fuck yeah. That was a good conversation for anyone listening who's not from California, not from the area. It's cool insight into sports. A lot of people talk about East Coast bias all the time. So it's cool to kind of put a spotlight on a region that we're all familiar with and have some insight on. Let's close the pod with this. Why don't you guys, what's the plan for Turtle Sports? Football off season? You guys haven't really been doing your podcast. Where are you guys going from here?
Yeah, we have definitely been on hiatus. We had some other things that we were working on outside of, the sports podcasting, sports betting. Luckily, Pickles is still posting up his college basketball plays. He was putting his NFL plays up. we are looking to get back into doing it on a more consistent basis. But as we all know, this is not our full-time job. If we were getting paid to do it, then we would make sure we were doing it all the time. So you guys understand how that is. You guys have done a great job of being here and being consistent, and it's a testament to you guys. So we are hoping to be more like Fade You in the future and be consistent with it. But yes, we are looking to get back into it. I do already have plans to have a Kentucky Derby special with the guys that I had last year that are in horse racing. That's where we got started. That's kind of what has turned into our niche, obviously. But yeah, no, our goal is to get back to it and get back to doing different things and getting different people on. We're going to get the F&G back with the Reading the Greens as well. He and I have talked about that. Probably do it with the Masters. We were going to try and do one when the pod kicked off, but just schedules couldn't align. Or I mean, when the season for golf kicked off, we were going to do a pod, but we're going to do one for the Masters for sure, and we'll do one for each major going forward. And then hopefully Pickles and I can get back to it during football season or maybe even in the NBA playoffs and talk a little MLB as well.
Sounds great. Yeah, Pickles. Anything to add for that you want to plug?
No, I mean, just I know college basketball is coming to an end, and just kind of hoping for some nice, ending here. These last couple of days have been just fucking awful. Just watched Ohio State just take a dumper in the last minute, but hey, it's whatever, right? I'm really excited about March Madness coming up, and we'll continue to post. NASCAR just started, so I know Joe likes NASCAR, and getting into that. I'm excited that Fontana's this week, and I hit one on last Sunday at the 500 with the Chevy winning, and that's a shithole race as it is. But
fuck that, Kyle Busch won. I would have been
there.
rich.
He had it. Me too.
He had it.
I jumped.
I wanted him to have it, but he never had it. I wanted him to have it.
What are you talking about? He was leading with like 2 to go.
That means nothing. That means nothing.
That's bullshit.
That means nothing at the Daytona 500. It means absolutely nothing.
Fucking bullshit is what.
Yeah,
it means.
like you said, if it was 1998, he would have won.
Yeah,
but you never want to lead at the last lap of any of those races. So, but no, I'm
Fontana's a shithole too. So my wife, I was like, "Hey, Christine, you want to go to the fucking race this weekend?" She's like, "No fucking chance." I was like, "Shit." All right, well, whatever.
I have consistently heard through just following people on Twitter and listening to conversation about sports betting that NASCAR is a great market to try to get into. That there's a lot of data-driven NASCAR stuff out there that it's a smaller bet event, so you can really find some value if you know what the fuck you're doing.
Yes,
dude, I'm pretty decent at NASCAR. Like you said, like betting a Chevy like that, dude. I'm pretty decent at that kind of shit.
Love it.
Well, I mean, a couple years ago, Pickles got us into doing matchups, and we were cleaning up on those. But they started waiting until literally almost the day of to put them up, and the lines were just so wide it didn't make it worth it. I mean, when you're laying 180, you're expecting like, oh, that's a hands down win, and it's not the case in NASCAR because all it takes is one malfunction, and that car is out of the race, and you just lost a bet where you're laying 180.
Fucking stupid.
All right, guys. Analysis. Good hashtag analysis right there. Good stuff from the dads, our friends at Turtle Sports. We love having you guys on, shooting the shit with you, talking some sports a little bit. For everybody listening, make sure you give them a follow _ Turtle Sports on the Twitter. You guys you're trying to figure out the underscore too. I think they're trying to get rid of those deactivated accounts. You guys might be able to lose the underscore maybe. I know Joe's trying to lose a few underscores.
I know Joe, we kind of did the Joe thing there for a while. And we're just like, screw it. Let's just stick with that. Like we're already there. Like might as well.
Definitely give them a follow. Look out for some of that content. You got to get the horse racing stuff, the Lundeen line, get that golf stuff going. That'd be great to take a peek at, and the NASCAR stuff too. So Finky, Pickles, appreciate you guys. We love you. Thanks for coming on, and we'll definitely do it again down the line.
Thank you guys very much. We appreciate
it. Having us. We really appreciate it.
Hell yeah.
In the meantime, everybody, make sure you're following us at Fade You Sports. Keep an eye out Saturday mornings live on Twitter. The two dads with Kmart and Neil and Chris Duke and Joey Cheese with some great college basketball insight and picks. Give us a follow on the YouTube, here on Twitter, subscribe, follow us everywhere. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to bringing more guests on as the football offseason continues to unfold. So we'll catch you guys next time.